Speaker, what a wonderful opportunity to speak about the 2025 budget, and indeed, unusually, to speak about it in 2025, because normally it takes us a fair bit longer to get to the take note of the budget debate, and I'm really pleased that I have the opportunity to highlight some of the really positive things that are happening in Monaro. And one of the most positive things that's come out of the Labor budget so far and the Labor approach to government is interestingly following on from the debate I just heard the tail end of there about the wages cap. What a bizarre situation to hear the Coalition sitting over there still defending their wages cap, and even more bizarrely saying that having a wages cap didn't suppress wages. I mean, you know, there's not a lot of logic in that argument. Flopped the leadership audition, says the minister at the table. I think that's probably absolutely right. But maybe the audition for the future cutting treasurer or something like that, or shadow treasurer, maybe that can be a family thing. Anyway, it's a
member for Epping. Goodness me.
The member for Epping's just very unparliamentary. I'm sure she'll work that out, that you shouldn't just walk into the chamber, interject and then walk out again. It's one of those unparliamentary things. So she wants to sit and interject on the other side. I'm happy to take her up on it.
Member for Epping rises on a point of order. I asked the member for Monaro to sit down. But member for... I haven't called you yet. Thank you. Would you like to rise and seek the call? Thank you. Member.
I'd ask him to withdraw that statement, which seems to suggest that I don't know what I'm doing.
Thank you, member. I've been listening and I don't recall that. Yeah. So I think we'll continue. Thank you. And
Speaker, thank you. But I note the member for Epping. I don't think I said that, but I may have been offering some advice on parliamentary procedure, which I'm probably able to do since I've been around a little while. But the important thing to note out of the debate earlier is simply the fact that there is a massive contrast between the Labor government and the former coalition government when it comes to the public sector. And one of the things which I was pleased to highlight for the electorate of Monaro out of the budget was the success that we'd had in turning around the really parlous situation that we had with staffing in some of our services. So as I go on in this debate, you'll see that I'm highlighting a number of capital projects, and they're really important things, having capital projects. But as I've said many times, and I said it in the election campaign and in the previous budget take note speeches, it's absolutely pointless having great buildings if you've got no staff in them, and that's the situation that the coalition government left us in. When I became the member for Monaro again, when I ran for the seat, I was constantly getting phone calls from parents at schools, from teachers, about the number of cancelled and merged classes. Now in the Monaro, when you've got merged classes in the playgrounds, that's not always particularly great when it's getting a bit cold. And it's also just not good for the education of our young people. So the thing that I highlighted for the locals out of the budget for this year was its continuing success in ensuring that we were properly funding our services, making sure that our essential workers staffing our schools, our hospitals, our ambulance services, our police, were getting paid enough to actually retain, to convince them to stay in their jobs. And that was something which just wasn't being done. In fact, the coalition in the lead up to the election just wouldn't even acknowledge the problem. They denied the problem in the schools when it was out there as plain as day that this problem was there. So we all do it when there's a budget comes out. We all highlight the capital spending, but I think it's really important to highlight the fact that proper pay for government workers is the core of how we deliver decent services for the people of New South Wales. And it was very instructive to hear the tail end of that previous debate as I came into this place, and to hear that the Coalition and the Nationals and the Liberals haven't learnt their lessons from their period in government. They haven't learnt their lessons from their election loss. And I may come back to some other aspects of lessons they haven't learned as I go through. But, Speaker, the budget for the Monaro electorate saw us with around $210 million in capital spending for Monaro in 25-26. That is a large amount of money. And some of the key projects that I want to highlight the progress on so far was that the budget allocated $58.2 million, which would be spent this financial year. It's not the total cost of the project, but this financial year as part of the Bungendore High School project. Now, the people of Bungendore have heard me talk a lot about the Bungendore High School project. It is a classic case of a complete cock-up by the National Party members for Monaro who preceded me. The Bungendore High School was a belated promise by the Nationals. I actually first promised the Bungendore High School to be built if I had been elected in 2015. Unfortunately, I was unsuccessful, and Labor was unsuccessful in being elected, so we couldn't deliver on that. So belatedly, some 5 or 6 years later, the then member for Monaro, John Barilaro, decided that yes, a Bungendore High School was justified and that he would promise that it would be opened before the 2023 election. So what they did, having wasted all that time, was put a temporary high school on the playground of the primary school, where it still is, and they opened the school with a lot of fanfare. At the same time, the then member for Monaro went out and he announced the site for the high school, and he said this will come as a surprise to the community, and indeed it did. Indeed it did, because he promised a site which then got embroiled in a community argument, for want of a better word, but it was an incredibly divisive period in Bungendore's history. Divided the community with people vehemently opposing the site, some supporting it, but creating the division that I've almost never seen before in a small country community. And that is a really awful situation to have evolved. It then got caught up in legal action for a long time. And what I am so thrilled about the budget funding this project for this year is that the Deputy Premier, Prue Carr, having listened to what was going on, having seen the prospects that this would continue to be bogged down in legal action, and having heard from me an awful lot about it, then took the very brave decision to go back to ERC and secure substantial additional funding to buy a totally new site for this school. It's a fantastic new site in the north of Bungendore, where all the future residential development is going to occur. And I'm really thrilled to say that construction is underway. Construction is underway, the earth's being moved, the school is scheduled for completion and for opening on day one of term 1, 2027. Now that's an ambitious process, but as members would know, this government has been moving along with school projects incredibly fast. We're seeing schools which were completely neglected by the opposition opened and ready to go, because we've removed barriers from some of the planning to actually get the schools moving, constructed and delivered. And so Bungendore is one of those. You know, I recognise that there will still be people who grumble about things, but I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to move that forward and deliver that school. One of the other big projects that's in the budget is for Googong High School. We promised that in the election campaign. Googong, population now of 9,000, 12,000 by the next election, 18,000 by 2030, and the coalition in government did not commit to building a high school. Now you've got to ask yourselves why. It built a primary school which was already too small by this year. So we've announced that in the budget we provided funding for 46.1 million built this financial year, and construction has started on the school. Not only that, but instead of expanding the existing public primary school in Googong and just trying to squeeze buildings into a limited block, we decided that we would build the second public primary school now. Rather than wait until the population got too much, we wanted to actually make sure the infrastructure was there. The second government primary school for Googong and a public preschool for Googong. So that means that the Monaro electorate out of our public preschools now is getting 4 public preschools. And that's a really exciting, in fact that extra preschool in Googong is on top of the 100 that we've been delivering around the state, because our commitment was to build a new public preschool in every public primary school that we built. What a fantastic thing for a growing community to see that sort of facility being put in place, and I'm really proud to be delivering that. Jerrabomberra High School Stage 2 was also had its funding confirmed in the budget. Work's underway, and we've got a range of other projects, capital projects, which are going on. I'll come back to those public preschools. and I was able in question time today to answer a question on public preschools and to talk about the number of preschools where Labor members have been out turning sods on public preschools. There was no public preschools. The gallery would be interested to hear this. I'm not sure, maybe your grandchildren and so on might be interested in this, and your children. There was no public preschools built in New South Wales over the 12 years leading up to the Labor government coming into power. We're building 100 preschools in this term of government, public preschools. And I'm the member for Monaro, which is in the south of the state, and 3 of those 100 plus 1 more will be there, making that 101. There's probably 102, 3, 4 now around the place as well. But that's a terrific achievement for our region. Now, in the south of the electorate, we've seen the budget continue to work on the $40 million Bombala Hospital expansion project. That's in the planning stages this year. Really important project for the people of Bombala. Bombala is going. That's a hospital expansion which is going to have aged care beds catering for the ageing population in the area. So those beds will be funded by the Commonwealth Government, as should be the case, because they will be long-term aged care, high needs aged care. But the hospital expansion will really make Bombala a very it'll be a centre of aged care in a lot of ways for our region, and that's really important to make sure that people can age in or near their communities where their families can access visiting them. And this facility is going to help to do that. Now, planning on that is a bit slow, I have to say. These processes do take a while, but we've just recently gone out and done public consultation with the people of Bombala about this project. Another project which is underway, funded again in the budget. In fact, the funding was increased by $14.7 million for this project, up to $33.7 million in the budget, was to rebuild what the locals call the Spotlight intersection, which is a roundabout on Ellerton Drive and Bungendore Road in Queanbeyan. And that's a project which will cater for the long-term traffic volumes that are coming through that area. Again, that's been out for public consultation. I'm expecting that construction will start on that in 2026. And that'll be a fairly long project because it's a difficult project. It's a busy road and there's got to be closures and diversions and things like that. The budget... Back to the south of the electorate, the Gaydon Trout Hatchery, really important facility for the people, for the trout fishing industry, I suppose to call it, but recreational trout fishing. It breeds a lot of the trout which stock our rivers around New South Wales, and it's a very important facility. So there was $4.4 million allocated to continue upgrades. And I was really thrilled to be with Minister Tara Moriarty in Jindabyne a couple of weeks ago, announcing that on top of that we're seeing a contribution from Snowy Hydro to actually build another new hatching room at the Gaydon Hatchery, and that's part of Snowy Hydro recognising its community obligation as part of building Snowy 2.0. So it was speaking to the trout acclimatisation societies about the fact that it was going to be doing a lot of work which affected the lakes in our region, and Snowy Hydro said to the Acclimatisation Society, what can we do to actually help industry? And they said, well, go and build us another hatching facility, and that's what's happened. Really thrilled to see that work underway with a sod turning recently with myself and Minister Moriarty. Minister Moriarty is also very involved in delivering the elements of the Snowy SAP, the water and sewerage upgrades, foreshore car park upgrade, and we've just recently gone out for expressions of interest for partners in developing a new mountain bike park in the Jindabyne area. That's part of turning Jindabyne from a winter tourism destination into a year-round destination, something which is really important for the future of the community. And then we, as a government, need to then be planning to make sure that the services that are being provided to the people of Jindabyne keep up with that. So a lot of really important local work that's being done in our region, and I think that the Labor Party and our commitment to the people of Monaro is clear to see there. It is about capital investment, but as I said at the outset, it's more importantly about making sure that when we build these facilities there is staff in them, so that as we look to the planning of a new ambulance station, for example, in Jindabyne, something that was promised by the Coalition in about 2017, but when I got into the seat in 2023, absolutely nothing had happened. No money allocated, no planning, no site acquired. But as we go to look at how we actually deliver that much-needed ambulance station, our increases in salary for our ambulance paramedics and our 500 additional paramedics who are being located in regional New South Wales will mean that we'll be better able to staff that station, and we'll be better able to provide the services that are needed in Cooma, which is the hub for a lot of those health delivery services around the region, with our ambulance paramedics spending a lot of time transporting people from hospitals in the Snowy Mountains down to Canberra, which is our main referral hospital for the region. So those are really important things to make sure that we are undertaking that work. And then, of course, this is a government which in its budget continues our commitment to really important things like net zero and the transition to net zero. And for people in Monaro, that's particularly important because we've got the ski industry as one of our key industries. And what we've seen with global warming is that the snow line continues to go up, that the reliability of ski seasons becomes less certain, and that we had a great season this year, but for the 2 seasons before that it was fairly average. And we need to make sure that we are meeting the expectations of the community and responding to the challenges of global warming and net zero. And as a representative of a rural electorate, I'm very conscious of the fact that all the polling shows that the majority of people in rural New South Wales support the transition to net zero. They want to see action on climate. And why wouldn't they? Because farmers are the ones who are most affected by the climate changes that we are seeing around the world and in New South Wales. And indeed, the sort of more frequent droughts, more frequent storms, which we're seeing are exactly what the CSIRO was predicting in the 1990s. So making sure that we're seeing that action on climate is really important. I saw some polling recently for regional New South Wales that showed us that that in actual fact in the res in the Central West, 63% of people in that res area supported action to go to address climate change and the transition to net zero. Just 17% were opposed to it, just 17%. And it really makes you wonder why we're seeing the National Party in various parts of the country, in New South Wales and federally, backing away from the commitments that they made when they were in government to address climate change. It is selling out the majority of farmers, the majority of rural and regional people, just to listen to some noisy minorities. Now, and that's something which I think is a real concern. In our electorate, we would be concerned to see a return of a coalition government which gave us another 10 years of inaction on climate, which again put us into that situation we saw when Tony Abbott came in and just did nothing. Created uncertainty for investors, uncertainty for the future direction. And people in New South Wales don't want to see that. We want to see action taken on climate. We want to see action taken to continue to provide a certain investment environment for people who are making the investments in renewables. We are already seeing, and this is one of the great flaws in the arguments that we hear from the Nationals, where they talk about the cost. Well, when you talk about a lot of the cost of transmission, which is a large part of the investment that's going on in climate, that's already embedded. It's already built in. If you get into government in 4 years' time, in 8 years' time, either federally or here, that cost's already embedded. It's still going to be paid for by the consumers. And a lot of people actually don't know that that more than around 50% of your cost, maybe a bit more, is actually transmission cost of electricity. And what we'd be better off looking at, if you're concerned about that, is the pricing model that's put in place by federal regulators on the transmission authorities. Because with renewables, the price of energy is actually dropping. We saw the wholesale cost of electricity in the last quarter actually dropped. Now, you mightn't see it on your bills for a while because they've got these great approved things by the regulators that mean that they continue on a trajectory of up for a while. But the basis in the long term means that the energy cost is starting to come down. So we need long-term thinking, we need consistent thinking from governments and from oppositions and bipartisanship. The other thing we need to see in our region, because energy is really important, and we've got essential energy, a bit of an old name for them. Essential energy is a really critical provider there, is we need to see a really clear statement from the Nationals and the Liberals that when Mark Speakman and the City Liberals get up and talk about building new metros and selling off assets to build new metros, that we can't see essential energy caught up in that. There's been nothing so far from this from the opposition in New South Wales. What we've seen is that they want to build 5 metros. That's about $100 billion worth or thereabouts of of work based on the cost of existing metros. And to do that, you'd have to sell off every single existing electricity asset in New South Wales and a bit more. It wouldn't be enough to actually pay for that promise that Mark Speakman and the Liberals are making at the moment. So rural country people have to stand up for these things and make sure that we're not being taken for a ride by any future Liberal or National government.
I thank the member, and your timing is perfect.